Hey everybody, it is late at night and I am Norman. I recently stumbled upon a tank-style dress watch from the 1970s that apparently has kind of a dark history to it. So of course I had to get one, and it's here now, so let's review it. And when I'm done reviewing it, I'll tell you a little bit about its seedy history. So let us begin. Here is my new Katina watch. I believe that's how that's pronounced. And hello, shameless Cartier homage. That is so crazy. It totally looks like a Cartier Tank Louis to me, with that pointy jewel here. But then again, it looks an awful lot like a Cartier Tank Solo also. I'm not really sure exactly what the differences between those two are, at least looking at the dial and the case shape, but that is why I purchased this, because I thought it would be interesting to show you guys a shameless homage to one of those tank watches. I personally have never really been interested in this style of a Cartier tank. No offense to those of you who love them, but my favorite is the Tank Americaine and ultimately the Cintre, but that's never gonna happen. So let's dive right in. This is not the strap that it arrived on. This is one that I pulled out of my box of straps. Why, you ask? Two reasons. First of which, this strap is falling apart, sadly. This was listed as new old stock, and apparently the strap didn't fare so well in the box. It looks like it may have only been put on once, but I might re-glue this at some point in time, get the proper glue to do that. However, I won't really be putting it on this watch because the taper on there is so extreme. And I feel like with a tank style watch, you have to be really careful with the taper. It just looks weird when you have something this drastic. So I have it on a strap with much less pronounced taper to it. This is one of my old D model straps, I believe. And this is a 19 millimeter. So it is odd lugged. This might actually be a 20 millimeter lug width, but there's barely any space there. So I'm pretty sure this is 19 millimeters. The lugs are very small, but it's actually not terribly tough to swap out straps. Sometimes with small lugs like this, it's really tough to get the spring bars in there close enough. And sometimes you'll find straps are too thick to put on the watch, but this one wasn't too bad at all. This is not a thick watch, which is pretty cool. The finish on it looks great, as you can see here. However, when you take the strap off and you look at the inside of the lugs there, it looks plated. In fact, it looks like painted plastic. You know, when you're a kid and you have toys that have that chrome painted over the plastic, after a while it wears off and it turns either blue or yellow, the color of the plastic beneath it. Now this, of course, isn't painted plastic, but it has that look on the inside of the lugs there. And given how expensive these things are, that was kind of a bummer. And I'll go over the price in a bit. But looking at this crown, total Cartier crown there, the little fake jewel on there, it's pretty cool. It looks awesome. Alright, so this is not a quartz watch. It actually has an edge movement in it. So let's wind this thing up and see what that crown is like to use. It kind of reminds me of my Palliot's, how it kind of like snaps back when you let go of it. But it feels pretty decent. And there we go, it's full. It doesn't feel like a garbagey vintage watch due to that edge movement that's in there. Alright, let's pop this out and see what it's like to set the time. Not too bad. The hands are fairly loose, but yeah, let's see if they jump at all. Nope. That's pretty cool. I actually like that it's a two-hander. That's kind of cool. And looking at the case back, we see that it is all brushed. It is a friction fit plate. And it looks like the knife access points are here and on the other side. Kind of tough to see on camera. There was a sticker on this back, and it was also new old stock, so that was fun to take off. It just completely disintegrated when I tried getting a corner of it, so I had to sit there for about 15 minutes with my fingernails just working it off till it was gone. Usually stickers are fun to take off. This one was not. And looking at the back of the lugs there, they don't look too bad. They don't look quite as plated metal as they do inside there when you take off the strap. And looking at the crystal, this is an acrylic crystal, and I feel like with this aesthetic, it would have been cool if the crystal was totally flat, but there's actually a little bit of a curve to it, and it kind of looks weird because it's almost an X shape and almost kind of accentuates the acrylicness, the plasticness of that acrylic crystal. Kind of in the way that the inside of these lugs looks like plated metal. This looks like plastic, but it's tough to catch it at the right angle, so that's cool. I do like the edges of this crystal, how they kind of catch some of the dial below and distort it a bit. And it's pretty much invisible for the most part, but yeah. Looking at the dial, of course it's a great design, being an homage. I think my only beef with this dial is I'm not really a fan of stark white dials. They just look like too much to me. I like dials that have a little something to them, a little metallicness to them, or a little touch of creaminess to them, so they aren't just paper white. An excellent example of what I'm talking about is with the Hamilton Bolton. You can see that there's almost like a little bit of a metallic sheen to it. Just a touch of silverness. And yet, all in all, it looks like a white dial. But it's a little bit creamy, a little bit silvery, and that just is night and day. It looks so much better. If we look at them side by side, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. This one looks like paper white, and this one just has something interesting in it. It doesn't look like it was a dial that was just kind of printed on paper, which is my impression of stark white dials. I'm sorry if you love stark white dials, but yeah, I like them a little bit creamier like this. But that's not to say that this looks bad. It just is a little bit much for me personally, but it doesn't really bother me a ton. Just when I'm really looking at it, maybe. Yeah. Whatevs. The handset is cool. It just, yeah. They did a great job homaging the Cartiers. As for the specifications on this watch, the case width is 26 millimeters. The case height is 8 millimeters. The lug to lug is 35 millimeters. The lug width is 19 millimeters. The crystal is acrylic, and the movement inside this is an ETA 2512-1. So it's a hand winding movement. I'll have to put this thing on the time grapher, see how it does. Alright, so let me take my amazing Juvenia watch off, and we'll see what this looks like when you're wearing it. So here is the Satina, however you pronounce that, on my 7-inch wrist. And it does look pretty cool. Even though this typically isn't my style of tank watch. Again, I like the Americaine. Watches that are a bit taller and thinner and kind of curve around the wrist a little bit more. But this does look pretty cool. And my biggest gripe about this watch is probably the price. Because it sort of reminds me of my $20 Seiko Quartz tank watches. It's very light and kind of feels like it's similar material, and I realize it's a dress watch, so it's not going to be heavy, but I guess I was expecting it to feel, I don't know, more solid than it does. Now $200 is basically what you'll find these for. I found a few eBay listings and they were all right around that price. I think some of them might be approaching $250 or $300. I paid a little bit over $200 for this, and it does look great. I mean, if you're considering a Cartier but want to kind of test drive it, you know, have something that looks very, very close that you can wear in daily use and see if it might be worth saving up the money for, this might be a good option. Just know that they aren't dirt cheap. They're a couple $100, but you do have an edge movement in there, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I'll give this some time, see if it grows on me. If it does, then I'm really in trouble because I like the Americaine. And if I fall in love with this aesthetic, that would mean the Tank Solo and the Tank Louis. I'd have a whole collection of Cartiers and I'd be dirt poor. Now, I mentioned the dark history on these watches. So apparently when they came out, people would buy them up and redial them as Cartiers and sell them as fakes. And honestly, that was kind of one of the reasons that I wanted to get one of these, just because of that interesting story. So crazy. But, I mean, yeah, this looks pretty cool. It looks, yeah. So there you have it, a watch that totally looks like a Cartier Tank Louis or a Cartier Tank Solo. But with that pointy jewel, I'd have to go with the Cartier Tank Louis. I don't know if I'd buy this again. It's kind of spendy, and the quality isn't quite what I expected. But it does look brilliant when it's on the wrist, so thanks for watching.